Passan, the World Baseball Classic has been a joy to watch. It's strange to me. We've been laughing for a week about the fact that emotion and fun brought to baseball makes this tournament feel somehow, even to the players, this is so much better than repressed Major League Baseball. It's weird. I don't think I've seen a lot like it in my lifetime.
It's very Miami, is it not? Like, I'm so glad the games are down here. A game like the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, I would have typically covered, but my family was in town, and I brought my wife and kids to the game because I wanted them to understand, hey, baseball is different in other countries. And the winter ball vibe that exists where there is cheering all game long and where there are chants and where it's so much more like a college football atmosphere, it can exist in baseball. And it's just a matter sometimes, I think, of the fans seeing it and understanding that the behavior of fans at baseball games, which is polite, maybe? Like, I don't even know how to describe it, but
repressed.
Yeah, repressed is the right way, actually. It doesn't need to be that way. And I think the players have started this.
It started, though, with baseball in the 50s, people wearing fedoras and suits to the games. We only get so far from that.
Shane, welcome to the ballpark.
I actually still wear suits to the games, so I'm not the person to talk.
My man.
I meant the fans.
Bring it back, Jack.
I meant the fans. You'd have a stands filled with people in suits and fedoras.
Say now.
Imagine me going to a Marlins game in a suit. I kind of want to do
I
that.
can imagine it, actually.
100% needs to do that now.
You should do
season.
it.
I want to do that this season. Just sit in section 17, row 12 in a suit.
People are going to be so confused. He's going to be empty. There's going to be nobody in the stand just looking at this weirdo in a suit.
Day game in June against the Orioles.
And a top hat, though, right? You got to go fully formal, right? You got to look like Mr. Peanut. Do you not? Passan, the World Baseball Classic, when it goes up against Steve Cohen saying, I don't want my reliever to miss the year, I don't like this thing. One business is coming up against the growth and the global growth of another business because baseball never gets to have this thing on its hands. Oh, look, here's a fun, exciting thing that in 5 years can become actually internationally phenomenal with half the televisions in Japan watching a game.
Tonight might be the most watched baseball game ever played. If you think about that, there are going to be more than 50% of TVs in Japan tuned in. And I think there's going to be a not insignificant number of American households that are watching.
The Last of Us.
I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to rate like an NFL game. It's not. But I really do think, and maybe I'm just in my little baseball bubble here, I really do think people are getting interested in this. And the game last night is a perfect example. Like, it was a truly great baseball game in March. You never see that. And this to me is a test of, okay, what is baseball's resonance? Because baseball's this sport that has gone from the national pastime to extremely local. Like, you root for your team more than you do consume the actual sport.
It's a regional sport. Baseball
100%.
has somehow squandered all of its national pastime, and it's a regional sport that exists for cable television dollars.
Yeah, and it got cable television dollars are going away. Like, the failure of the RSNs, more than half the teams in baseball now illustrate that. Major League Baseball, what it wants to do is get a national package together like the NFL has, and yet it's going to run up into the Yankees and the Red Sox, who own their own network, saying, we're not going to be a part of that. We're doing just fine by ourselves. And so there's a conflict in baseball. What does baseball want to be versus what is it capable of becoming? And I think an event like this, I wrote something that I think is going up on ESPN.com within the next hour. And it's okay to love the World Baseball Classic and Major League Baseball simultaneously. These are not two things that are competing with one another. They're two things that should be symbiotic. They should be feeding off of each other. Because I know this, talking with Shohei Ohtani last night, after the most meaningful game he has played on American soil and seeing the utter joy in his face, like This is a guy who is normally just so, I mean, it's almost boring by design.
Jeff, he's a monster robot Babe Ruth who can
He's better than Babe Ruth.
but he could reach America.
Wow, that's a hot
that as
take
Elmo,
right
please.
there. Yes.
Show how Tiny is better than Babe Ruth.
Flip it.
I mean, I agree.
What?
And not only do I agree, I would say that what he is saying, to see personality, to reach across the bridge, the cultural bridge, the translations bridge, the language barrier, I was stunned to see him joyous. I'm like, oh, that's what that looks like.
He flexed.
He's human.
Like I've never seen him flex. It was like the program went haywire when he hit that double.
That's what happens when you play for the Angels.
Mm-hmm. But, Jeff, what do you make of the timing of it? Because if I'm Steve Cohen, I'm not happy that I've lost my reliever to someone who's not paying my reliever.
But this is a regional game going up against the growing of a global game.
I'm all for the game. I'm not all for the game and playing this particular tournament right before the Major League Baseball season starts.
I'm just telling you, the part of it that's interesting to me is that Cohen is building a regional thing with the Mets that he's throwing a lot of money into, and this is where you grow the game globally, over here in this thing that he would object to.
Yeah, and I think if you play it in the middle of the summer, you do a NHL style All-Star or Olympics break rather. If you do that and he blows his knee out there, then you lose your closer halfway through the season. If you do it after the season and he blows out, then you're going to be missing him for half of next season.
More time to recover, though. If you do it after the season, more time to recover, and if he misses the first half of the next season, perhaps you could live with that, as opposed to what he's living with now, which is I'm out the entire season.
Yeah, and I totally see the argument there for that. The problem is the vast majority of players are going to have been off a month. And we saw this during COVID. If you take a month off,
right,
you have to re-ramp back up. And if you don't take a month off, that's more and more pitches that you're throwing, more and more stress and strain on your elbow and your shoulder, and more injury risk potentially. So there's no good answer for the timing of it. And I think what Major League Baseball and the organizers of the WBC have done is recognize that because there's no good answer, we're not going to change things from where it is right now. If there's an elegant solution to this, I'd love to hear it. I've just yet to at this point.
Jeff, you mentioned that MLB and the World Baseball Classic should be allies. It should be a symbiotic thing. But isn't there a chance for an adversarial relationship? And I'm imagining, because of the Edwin Diaz thing and Altuve, I'm imagining that some clubs may try to actively dissuade their star players from playing, perhaps even contractually moving forward.
Yeah, the contractual element's going to be tough just because I think after talking with dozens of players who have played in this and unanimously hearing how much they love it, the MLBPA would never sign off on that. But I think what I was talking about was more of a fan thing than an inside the game thing. It's the angry Mets fans who are saying this is just an exhibition and now we haven't won a championship in 35 years and you're telling me that our best closer or our best relief pitcher is going to be out for the year. Why? It's an exhibition, yes. Like if we're just factually stating what it is. But I tend to listen to players when it comes to competition and what excites them. And the way that players talk about the WBC is on the very same level that they do the World Series.
The part that's fascinating to me is Mets fans saying the players don't deserve that joy. I do. My shortstop shouldn't be out there enjoying that game that way when we're paying
they're being
him.
paid by the Mets, and part of that is part of the revenue is coming from them buying tickets.
But the racial undertones on this are fascinating. What a fan is
the selfish undertones.
What a fan feels entitled to from ball players that are telling you this is a joyous game. I enjoy playing it over here. You wouldn't have to pay me anything to play it over here. When I have to go play it for you corporate turds is when everything gets ruined.
I mean, this is like the purest form of baseball, isn't it? A couple of players over the last few days have been saying this reminds them of when they were back in high school. And they, almost all of these guys, the Americans especially, where the baseball system is such that if you are a great player in high school, you'll get chosen for a select team. And there'll be a group of guys from around the country who get together and try and figure out within a week of time, can we become a team? And can we figure it out? The Japanese team is fascinating because they went to the Olympics together. They play exhibitions together. They started their training camp on February 17th when the U.S. started on March 7th and played its first game on March 11th. Like, seeing the U.S. team become a team over the last 2 weeks has been such an edifying thing for them, because this is baseball. It has the business, but it feels like baseball without the business.
It's so cool. The idea that
the
Trout would be paid that way and enjoy this more.
Oh,
it's just absurd.
I mean, Mike Trout hasn't been to the playoffs since 2014, and so he feels like he's playing in meaningful games. And
well, how about you make the playoffs though?
A good point, as always, by Stugotz.